1012, and it gives me 1,250 feet. Texas.
Announced the arrival of the flight from Los Angeles and Chicago.
Explosion.
And welcome, everybody, to this Thursday, May 5th edition of TNZ Talk. I'm Tony Trupiano, the T in TNZ. The Z in that equation is one Richard Zombeck, a writer for the Huffington Post and Liberals Unite. Liberals Unite sounds like a superhero site, doesn't it?
It does.
Liberals Unite.
And we are.
Yeah, you know, I forgot to do May the 4th be with you yesterday.
Well, wait, I have a surprise for you.
Okay.
Do you want to hear it?
Sure.
Happy Cinco de Mayo. Arriba. Okay, that's enough of that.
Yes, it is. And,
well, I was looking through some audio yesterday, and I said, "Hey, it's Cinco de Mayo tomorrow. I think I'll find something to play for and annoy Tony."
And can't thank you enough for that.
Well, I figured since Trump's going to get rid of all the Mexicans, we might as well give him a good send-off.
So as we're sitting here, just starting the show. I do the show on the laptop. The desktop, I do my email, and I just got an email from a guy that I've known for many, many years. And the couple times that I have run for public office, he absolutely, totally ignored my request to make a donation to my campaigns. Once for Congress, once for the State House. I just get an email from him telling me that, "Hey, Tone, it's really important that you send me a donation."
Yeah. Don't you love that?
No, and I will not be sending him a donation.
Yeah, I get a bunch of emails from people that have blown me off, that have treated me like dirt, that never return my calls. And I get emails from them saying, "Hey, I'm starting this new thing, wondering if you can do an article for me in Huffington Post."
Ha!
And I can't tell you how hard it is for me not to respond.
What I would do is send me the information and I'll run it by my editor.
Right.
And then that's usually the end of it. And then I hear back from them, sometimes not at all. Sometimes I do, and I'll say, never heard from my editor. Of course, yeah. I'm not going to hear from my editor because I don't have one.
Right.
But they don't need to know that. Anyway, Z, good morning to you. Good day to all of our listeners. Again, the political scene continues to unfold, and we're not going to just talk presidential politics today, although that will certainly be the lion's share of what we discuss. We are going to talk a little bit about the president's trip to Flint, Michigan yesterday, and Michigan Governor Rick Snyder's resounding boos from the crowd when he spoke for just over 3 minutes, which were, about just over 3 minutes too long to speak.
Yeah, he got kind of killed, huh?
Yeah, and talk about bad. Very quickly, I want to go back to the discussion we had yesterday about the Correspondents' Dinner. Larry Wilmore wasn't really that funny.
No, he wasn't. He kind of bombed, and I mean there's a couple things that contributed to that. One, going up after the president isn't easy. Wilmore is a pretty funny guy, but I think he looked more like he was taking out his frustrations on a room full of ex-girlfriends, and it didn't go over too well.
No, and in fact, I think it was twice during his remarks where he said, "This room is awfully quiet," and then he made some other similar kind of remark. It was just uncomfortable to watch him do that. And then I thought that his racial slurs were unnecessary. I mean, using the word Negro was not a big deal, but when he used jigaboo and then the N-word,
I thought the N-word at the end with "you did it, my whatever." Yeah. Somewhere I thought that was pretty good, because to me it was like, it was two black guys. It was really the way that Obama's been treated the whole 8 years, that he's the black guy in the office, and between two black guys, that seems to make sense. And it made sense for a comedian after a stand-up bit by the president to say that. I understand the backlash about it. I understand people not being happy about it. I understand. Fox News was incredibly not happy about it.
Well, and it wasn't that I thought it was necessarily inappropriate. I didn't think it was necessarily necessary. I think he could have found another way to do it without uttering the N-word, but it didn't offend me.
It wasn't a bad idea.
No, but in context with his entire monologue, it just didn't work. Although I did love the Lester Holt joke when he said, I'm a black guy taking over for a white guy who was pretending to be a journalist just like Lester Holt. That was pretty damn funny. So anyway, I just wanted to mention that very, very quickly.
I didn't watch part of Larry Wilmore stuff because I just wasn't finding it very humorous.
Well, I mean, it was what it was, or it wasn't what it was, however you want to put it, but it wasn't necessarily very good. So here we are, the day after. There used to be this saying when you worked out for the first time that it wasn't the next day you would be sore, it would be the day after the day after. I think we're beginning to see that in Republican politics, but the pendulum is swinging wildly in both directions. There are some Republicans that are now clearly embracing Donald Trump, and there are others that are absolutely going into exile over Donald Trump. And we've never seen this kind of pendulum swinging politically over a candidate ever in the history of this great country. And I'm already getting tired of who will his VP be. And it's only been a little over 24 hours. Because the names that are being mentioned are not people that I like. Not one of them.
Sarah Palin, hopefully.
Wasn't on the list, sorry. She wasn't on the list. Marco Rubio is. Chris Christie is. Ted Cruz is not. And in fact, we've got some audio we're going to share a little bit later that the Clinton campaign put together on Donald Trump. And so some of this stuff's a little older. But Lindsey Graham yesterday said that some people say they'll have to, plug their nose to vote for Donald Trump. I'd have to cut mine off.
Would that work?
No, it probably wouldn't. But what I'm getting the impression, and you're doing as much, if not more, reading than I am, that there are Republicans that are just willing to sit this one out. They're not going to vote for Hillary. They're just not going to vote.
Yeah, well, I think, that's another thing, is I think we'll see. I don't know. I mean, we hear this every election, that I'm not going to vote for him, I'm not going to vote for her. I don't know. I mean, I'm wondering how far loyalty can go and how much they can go against brand and party loyalty. So, and whether or not this is just rhetoric. I mean, I'm hearing a lot of private citizen Republicans say that in interviews, and but I don't really believe the politicians or the pundits when they're. I think it's hyperbole.
Well, like you said, we'll find out, and what happens or doesn't happen in the voting booth is between the voter and the ballot. And a lot of people vote absentee. And so some of these folks, you'll never know if they voted at all or if they voted for everything but the top of the ticket. Time will tell, and the numbers will tell. At this point, a CNN poll out yesterday showed Hillary Clinton beating Donald Trump by 13 points. And I realize it doesn't matter at this point. See, I get that. There's still a Democratic primary going on, and, there has to be some energy put into that. But Hillary Clinton has really gone into general campaign mode. And I don't know that she has a choice, to be honest with you. I don't know that she can pretend that Donald Trump is out there bashing her and not responding to that, because she has to. She can't just let that happen until June or July, for that matter.
Did you want me to say something?
Well, yeah. Generally the way this works, because we've been doing this a while, I talk, and then when I stop, you either talk about what I've talked about or say, well, let's change the topic, but don't sit there and say nothing.
Well, while you and I were talking, I have this little program that mutes my mic. And I realized as we were talking and when I coughed that my mic wasn't actually muted. So I've been trying to find out why that wasn't working while we were talking. So to be honest with you, I wasn't 100%
paying attention
in the conversation, let's say.
Yeah, I'm now getting that impression.
Usually I sit here while you talk and I look at porn, I do some online shopping, and then when it's time for me to talk, it becomes interesting.
Okay, well, and I believe that because as others have pointed out, sometimes you actually let me say something. But with that said, let's before we get into the whole Trump anti-Trump thing, John Kasich had a major announcement yesterday afternoon at 5:00 Eastern time.
Poor little guy.
Yeah, and he got all verklempt. Anyway, this is basically, in a nutshell, what he had to say.
I believe we all need to live a life. We all need to live a life bigger than ourselves. Yes, we need to live a life a little bit bigger than ourselves. We need to reach out to help lift someone else, because you know what? It comes to us naturally if we let it. You see, we are, as human beings, kind of hardwired to want to give someone else a lift, give someone else an opportunity. You see, I have always said that the Lord has a purpose for me, as He has for everyone. And as I suspend my campaign today, I have renewed faith, deeper faith, that the Lord will show me the way forward and fulfill the purpose of my life. Thank you, and God bless.
Well, maybe somebody should remind him he is the governor of Ohio.
Yeah.
and he does have a job, and he is collecting a paycheck, and you are still a conservative, vast right-wing Republican, even though you looked like the adult in the room. You really weren't. But there were other parts of the speech where he got very emotional, and I don't get that, because he's known for months that he wasn't going to be the nominee.
Have you noticed that all of the Republicans who said that they were personally chosen by God are the ones that have dropped out?
Well, yeah. But God must have told them that it was time to drop out, too.
I don't think He did. I always wonder about that. I mean, I wish someone would ask that. It's like, here's a tape of you saying that you were personally chosen by God. Cruz, in particular, whose father thinks that he's the second coming of Jesus Christ, literally thinks that. I'd like at least one reporter or talk show host to ask, hey, what happened with this? Did you get a second call? Can we hear the voicemail?
Yeah. Well, by the way, George Herbert Walker Bush and George W. Bush have both made a statement that they are going to be staying silent on the 2016 election. John McCain just made a statement that Donald Trump hurts his reelection chances. Senator McCain, I don't know how to tell you this, but your record hurts your reelection chances. But, blame it on Donald Trump if you have to. And that's just it. How many people are going to blame Donald Trump if they don't win reelection?
Yeah, not the GOP in general, right?
No, or not themselves for that matter. But hey, who's counting? The party of personal responsibility doesn't want to take any responsibility. Anyway, so John Kasich is out. That does leave Donald Trump. That definitively makes him the presumptive nominee, since he'll be the only one running in the remaining states, although there will be names in the ballot. The voters will know in advance that he is the only one left, the only candidate left, and ergo he will pretty much, and if he doesn't win all of these elections, then there's something seriously wrong with this equation. We've got some other audio that I'd like to get to, and let's Wolf Blitzer, who, by the way, man, Larry Wilmore really gave CNN a hard time, and in fact, so did President Obama when he said to Jake Tapper, he was talking about
he got out of the news business, out of journalism, and joined CNN.
CNN, right? And so CNN took quite a beating. I read a trade article yesterday how CNN is now making a play for Fox viewers, and it was interesting to say the least.
Well,
anyway,
hold on a sec, because Larry Wilmore went after him in what I thought. I mean, it was a pretty brutal attack, but it was like, ask some follow-up questions for Christ's sake every once in a while. And here's what gets me, and I don't know if you remember this, but a couple of years ago, it might have been longer than this, CNN was taking a lot of hits for their coverage and for the way they covered the news, and I mean all kinds of things. I mean, they were being brutalized. And Wolf Blitzer went on his show and on a couple other shows on CNN and basically said that he was going to get serious, that the level of journalism had lapsed in this country, and that he was going to be more hard-hitting. He was going to go back to his roots of journalism, of asking tough questions and holding people accountable, that he had a responsibility. And I was, quite frankly, pretty moved by it. I was at the time, probably watching reruns of The Newsroom on HBO and welling up at there actually being a possibility of real news. It was my hope and change moment. And Wolf Blitzer said this, that he was going to get serious. And that lasted about 48 hours. And he went back to the usual, oh, no, please say whatever you want. I mean, it doesn't matter what you're saying. We'll just put a microphone in front of you. And please pontificate about how President Obama was not born here. And just let people, basically do their thing. So this little clip was it wasn't a great example of journalism, but for Wolf Blitzer, it was a change. Let's put it that way. How's that?
All right, let's listen.
People think the general election campaign has started today, you versus Hillary Clinton. This week, she said this about you.
The leading Republican contender is the man who led the insidious birther movement to discredit the president's citizenship. We cannot let Barack Obama's legacy fall into Donald Trump's hands.
Do you know who started the birther movement? Do you know who started it? Do you know who questioned his birth certificate, one of the first? Hillary Clinton. She's the one that started it. She brought it up years before it was brought up by me. And, so she can talk. Look, Here's a person under investigation by the FBI. She's only going to get the nomination because it's a rigged deal. And frankly, maybe she won't even be able to run. Now, I think she probably will, because I think the Democrats will work it so that nothing happens to her, even though everything happened to other people that did far less.
But James Comey, the FBI director, he's a serious guy. You have confidence in him. If he thinks there are allegations that she may have violated, broken the law, he'll recommend that.
I hope so. I hope
you have confidence in him.
I do have confidence. I don't know him. I do have confidence in him.
Let me just clarify. The whole birther thing, where do you stand on that now?
I don't talk about it anymore, because every time I talk about it, it becomes a story. So I don't want to waste my time talking about it anymore.
But she's going to raise this issue against you.
I don't care. I'm going to raise it against her.
All right, let's talk a little bit about...
Voila.
Voila. I don't want to talk about it anymore. You don't want to talk about it anymore.
Well, and I don't know. There was a part of this clip that I must have cut, because they went to the clip. I know what happened. The clip went to some music, and then it went back to Wolf Blitzer, who later in the show said something to the effect of, "By the way, we found no evidence of Hillary Clinton questioning Obama's birth certificate."
Okay. Well, anyway, we do know that the Donald made an ass out of himself, and as a result of that, he's the Donald. With that said, I don't know how this is going to work. I really don't. I have no idea how this is going to work.
I gotta tell you, at this point, I'm in wait mode. Because I can't even believe that we have Biff from Back to the Future as, and here's the thing, right? Ted Cruz said that the other day. He compared Donald Trump to, was it Biff Henderson or Biff something, in Back to the Future. And we can go back to almost 6-7 months ago when you and I were talking about this and comparing him to Biff from Back to the Future. And so, Ted Cruz's wasn't an original thought, but just this is just insane. And until I think the GOP and the punditry and the media basically stop being in shock, which is what they are now, I don't think there's a lot to be said about this right now. I think Hillary Clinton, with the way that the Clintons have done politics forever and the kind of stuff that they're pulling on Bernie Sanders right now, I think this is just going to be a cage match between Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton, and he's going to put his foot in it constantly.
He doesn't have a choice because of the person that he is, and I say that in the worst possible way. By the way, I just, again, part of the news feed I get, the headline is, and obviously I haven't had a chance to read it, but it's in the Washington Post yesterday. Larry Wilmore on his White House Correspondents' Dinner speech, "I knew I lost the room early." No kidding, Larry. Yeah, definitely did.
Well, and also let me just add too that Elizabeth Warren is going after him hard as well.
After Larry Wilmore?
After Donald Trump.
Oh, I know she's going after Donald Trump. I was talking Larry Wilmore, and all of a sudden, sweet Jesus.
I know. Non sequitur.
That's. We'll get through this. I think we will anyway. Well, listen, there were a couple very conservative radio talk show hosts that had meltdowns. Glenn Beck being one of them, and Mark Levin being the other one. And Mark Levin actually directed his ire at not necessarily Donald Trump, but Fox News, which was kind of surprising. Now, you're not going to agree with everything that Mark had to say, but at the end of the day, he wasn't wrong. So let's take a listen to him, and then we'll listen to Glenn Beck.
Said today. I heard what he said on Fox and Friends, not live. I don't watch it. I heard what he said on the Fox News channel when he called in this morning. I watched it later. And then as I'm preparing for Levin TV, I watched this same pathetic program with 4 women. And Bill Hemmer was the guy sitting in the middle, the only guy that made any sense there, by the way. And they weren't explaining the context for why Ted Cruz was taking off on Trump. And the implication was, something's wrong with Ted Cruz. And you'll see this all over the web, too. All over the Internet. And by the way, ladies and gentlemen, somebody said to me, how are you going to handle tonight's show? I go, what do you mean, how am I going to handle tonight's show? I'm invested in the country. I'm invested in conservatism, in liberty, in the Constitution. So we're going to duke it out every step of the way. I'm not the one running for president. Donald Trump has to figure out how to unite conservatives behind his campaign. He's doing a hell of a pathetic job of it right now, and so are his surrogates. They think this is funny. We're going to get our asses kicked in the general election, ladies and gentlemen. That's the trajectory. Maybe it'll change, but likely it will not. Now, let's go to some facts. And here's another thing. I don't know why I punish myself. But somebody was monitoring for me because I wouldn't watch it, The Five on Fox. Not until they tell me 5:22 or 5:23 into the show, that is 22 or 23 minutes after the top of the hour, 5 p.m. Eastern, did Greg Gutfeld bring up the fact of what Trump said about Ted Cruz's father. Didn't lead with the story. Wasn't a news item on the story. Gutfeld had to bring it up. Ladies and gentlemen, Donald Trump is bringing up a National Enquirer story that accuses Ted Cruz's father, Rafael Cruz, of being in cahoots in one way or another with Lee Harvey Oswald. Now, I'll let you listen to it so people don't accuse me of misinterpreting, because a lot of that goes on. Somehow we keep misinterpreting what Donald Trump says. Cut 1, Mr. Producer. This is Fox and Friends this morning. Hat tip, right scoop. Go.
You know, his father was with Lee Harvey Oswald prior to Oswald's being, shot. I mean, the whole thing is ridiculous. What is this, right prior to his being shot? And nobody even brings it up. I mean, they don't even talk about that. That was reported, and nobody talks about it. But I think it's horrible. I think it's absolutely horrible that a man can go and do that, what he's saying there.
Right. There was a picture out there that reportedly shows Rafael Cruz standing with Lee Harvey Oswald.
I mean, what was he doing with Lee Harvey Oswald shortly before the death, before the shooting? It's horrible.
I don't know. What was he doing, Mr. Producer, with Lee Harvey Oswald before the shooting, before the death of JFK? It's horrible. Am I misinterpreting what he's saying, Mr. Producer? So, we want to know. That's the big question Donald Trump has. The Republican leader for the nomination of the Republican presidential candidacy to run for president of the United States. He wants to know why Rafael Cruz was hanging out with Lee Harvey Oswald before the shooting. He said it's horrible. And his source, which he doesn't mention, he was about to, but he pulled back, is, of course, the National Enquirer. And I learned, according to my friend who sent me an email about what was on the Five, that several of the people on the Five thought this was hilarious. As a matter of fact, they were defending the National Enquirer. So, they've gotten a number of stories right, like the Edwards story and this story and that story. Oh, wow. That's why it's not the Fox News Channel. It's the Fox Channel and the Donald Trump Super PAC. This is insanity. They may be laughing today, but they're going to be rubbing their own faces in their own feces, I'll tell you that, after this general election. Because they...
How you like that? They're going to be rubbing their own faces in their own feces.
Beautiful.
You think Mark Levin was just a little bit unhinged?
Just unhinged. Holy crap.
And he's a Ted Cruz supporter. So, we'll keep that in context. But there's really nothing he said that was improper.
No.
And it wasn't really pro-Ted Cruz, was it?
No. And I'll tell you something, too, is I like what he said. It's not the Fox News Channel. It's just the Fox Channel. Because I started doing the same thing about 2 years ago. Whenever I quoted something from Fox or played a video in one of my articles from Fox, I said Fox. I never said Fox News. I specifically took Fox News out of it. You saw what they did at the Correspondents' Dinner last year, right?
I'm sure I did.
The Obama administration, they had everyone MSNBC News, CNN News, and they purposely left news off of the Fox table. They just put Fox.
Right. I do remember that.
On the table tents.
Well, it is what it is. Now, Glenn Beck, who it seems to be the head of a now failing online news outlet called The Blaze, and I say that because I just read yesterday where they laid off 40 staffers. Their third CEO in 2 years quit. Their social media director just quit. Well, he had his own anti-Trump tirade yesterday. And you know what? You and I couldn't say it better if we wanted to.
Donald Trump is the face of the GOP. Well, that makes us crony capitalists. It makes us wafflers. It makes us pretty racist. It makes us big government guys. It just, you name it. It makes us that. Well, I'm none of those things. And so I can't say, well, these are my friends, because that's my future. I won't tolerate it. I don't want my children to look at that man and say, yeah, he's my president. I won't have that. I will not endorse it. I will not tolerate it. And I refuse to have my children think that I tolerated that. I won't tolerate it. For my children's sake, for capitalism's sake, for the Constitution's sake, for the party's sake, you have no chance of winning. First of all, let me tell you this. Donald Trump is now, 81% anti-Hispanic? The Hispanics are 81% against him?
I think it's higher.
You think it's higher now? So in the 80s, okay, anti-Hispanic, okay? Hispanics are like, I'll never vote for Donald Trump. And they're now 16%, or only 16% are left saying that they will vote for a Republican. So you've lost the Hispanic vote. When you come in and you now have the Hillary Clinton running, Hillary Clinton's going to win. Now, I say that with the caveat of I've been wrong this entire election, so maybe Donald Trump wins. But let me tell you this, one way or another, and he's not going to build a wall. And if he does, then I'll apologize to him on that day. But he's not going to build that wall. And Mexico's not going to pay for it. And if he does, I will apologize on that day. But here's what happens. Because Donald Trump is the GOP candidate, and I believe Hillary Clinton is going to win because of this, you will never elect another GOP person to high office ever again.
That would be great.
Ha!
I can only hope that Glenn Beck knows of what he speaks.
Well, but didn't Donald Trump say on Tuesday night that he won the Hispanic vote, he won the women vote, he won the black vote, he won every vote?
Well, yeah, women love him, except the 75% of women that don't.
He is so toxic. And that actually could be a nice segue into Flint, but we'll get to that in just a bit.
Well, but the thing is, Tony, is we've never had an election where the two primary contenders or principal candidates have unbelievably low approval ratings.
Well, yes. And I think that will change after their conventions. It'll change for one of them, and that one is Hillary Clinton. I don't think she needs to worry about the Bernie bros. I don't think she's going to need them. And don't take that the wrong way. I think that there's going to be such an anti-Trump backlash that women, Hispanics, and other minority groups will rise up against the tide of Trump's racism and make sure that he is soundly defeated. But as Glenn Beck just said, let me just finish my thought here. As Glenn Beck just said, I've been wrong about everything during this election cycle, so I could be wrong about that as well.
Right, and here's a thought that I had, and let me finish my thought before you attack me, because in a number of polls, Bernie beats Trump by larger numbers than Hillary does in a general election. However, let me finish. However, I have very little faith in Bernie supporters actually getting to the polls.
Which was my yawn. I'm ready for... No, that's not what I want to say. So let me say what I want to say. I yearn for the day when you had two mainstream political candidates that you knew were corrupt, but one was going to be better than the other. Ergo, Romney Obama or Obama McCain. Clinton fits into that category. Bernie Sanders does not. A guy like Bernie Sanders doesn't get elected president in a country like the United States of America because he can't. Not because we don't want him, not because he doesn't appeal to us, not because he doesn't say the right thing, not because he wouldn't do the right thing. Because all of those things are true. Richard Zombeck, we just don't elect people with integrity anymore.
That's very true.
As much as I respect President Obama, as much as I feel his pain for having to endure 8 years of Mitch McConnell et al., although I did enjoy that little skit he did with John Boehner during the White House Correspondents' Dinner.
I thought that was pretty good.
That was really good, especially when he offered him a cigarette.
Yeah.
By the way, I just talk about cigarettes and news feeds. Right before the show, you and I were talking about e-cigarettes, right?
Yep.
FDA issues tighter rules for e-cigarettes in a landmark move. E-cigarettes have become a target. Next is going to be vaping. You wait and see.
Well, and actually, vaping and e-cigarettes are the same thing. But actually, the FDA, there was a lot of waiting around in anticipation over the FDA regulations, and the regulations that they did release, which wasn't. I don't think it. I'm wondering if that article you're looking at is recent, because that already happened
10 minutes ago.
Well, I know 10 minutes ago, but what's the article dated?
Today.
Oh, okay.
At 10:14 a.m. Eastern time.
Well, send that to me, because there was it was looking like their regulations weren't going to be as oppressive as the vaping and e-cig community and retailers thought it would be.
Well, here, let me just read you what it's. I'll read you the first two paragraphs. It's real simple. The Food and Drug Administration made final sweeping new rules for what the first time extended federal regulatory authority to e-cigarettes, popular nicotine delivery devices that have grown into a multi-billion-dollar business with virtually no federal oversight. The 499-page regulatory roadmap, I'd say that's extensive, has broad implications for public health, the tobacco industry, and the nation's 40 million smokers. The new regulations would ban the sale of e-cigarettes to Americans under 18 and would require that people buying them show photo identification to prove their age, measures already mandated in a number of states. The rules also impose regulations on cigars. And that's all it says, but it's in the New York Times. You know, I got to tell you very quickly, as a side trip, as I often do. I'm at a gas station the other day, and I'm obviously a smoker. I'm at the gas station the other day buying cigarettes, and next to me, and it's a place I don't normally stop at, and next to me, as I'm standing in line, is like this makeshift humidor with cigars in it. And there were cigars in that case that cost $14, $18 for a freaking cigar, Z.
Well, I can understand that price for a cigar. I can't understand that price for a cigar in a convenience store.
Well, I mean, especially, no. See, I can, because people, A, it's convenient. That's why they call them convenience stores. B, what it is about cigars, but people that are lovers of cigars will pay astronomical sums for, I guess, a yummy tasting rolled leaf piece of stuff that looks like a piece of poop. I'm just
to some people. Well, but I mean, think about it. A pack of butts, American Spirit at least, are $10-11 a pack.
Well, not here. A pack of cigarettes here is just under $7 a pack, which is still outrageous.
For American Spirits?
No, for regular cigarettes. American Spirits are actually a little cheaper.
Really?
Yeah.
See, I shouldn't have quit smoking. I should have just had you send me cigarettes.
Yeah, well, that wasn't going to happen. I can barely afford to buy my own, let alone buy them for someone else.
I would have sent you money. I would have sent you enough for a carton.
Okay, well, thanks. Anyway, we're getting way off.
And even a carton for yourself, since I was saving all that money.
Okay, yeah, they're not that expensive here. Anyway, with that said, and before we move on to Flint, the Clinton campaign, as I said, have moved into general election mode. And for those that are getting all uptight about, why are we talking about this and not Bernie, get over it again, because Hillary is going to be the nominee, and it's just the way it is. They've come out with 2 ads, and you can play whichever one you want to play first, but they're both anti-Trump, and they're both pretty damned good.
They're bringing drugs. They're bringing crime. They're rapists. I'll use the word anchor baby. This is a country where we speak English, not Spanish. You're going to have a deportation force. I will get rid of gun-free zones on schools. My first day, it gets signed. A total and complete shutdown of Muslims entering the United States.
Do you still believe that Muslims should be banned from entering the country until we can figure out what's going on, as you've said?
Yes, we have to find out what the hell is going on.
What do you think of what I said? It's fine. And if we want to go stronger, I'd go stronger too.
When you get these terrorists, you have to take out their families.
Bomb the shit out of them. Maybe Syria should be a free zone for ISIS.
Can you tell the Middle East we're not using a nuclear weapon?
I would never say that. I would never take any of my cards off the table.
How about Europe?
I'm not going to take it off the table.
You might use it in Europe?
He appeared to mock a reporter with a disability.
I don't remember.
Planned Parenthood should absolutely be defunded.
How do you ban abortion?
You'll go back to a position like they had, where people will perhaps go to illegal places.
Should the woman be punished for having an abortion?
There has to be some form of punishment.
Will you condemn David Duke and say that you don't want his vote or other white supremacists?
I don't know anything about white supremacists, so I don't know. Knock the crap out of them, would you? I'd like to punch him in the face. Everything I say I'm going to do, folks, I do, okay?
Okay, that was ad number 1, or ad number whatever. This other ad is all Republicans talking about the Donalds. So let's go with that one.
I am a unifier. We're going to be a unified party.
He is a con artist.
A phony.
Donald Trump is the know-nothing candidate.
Donald is a bully. This is an individual who mocked a disabled reporter.
I don't remember.
Who attributed a reporter's questions to her menstrual cycle.
Blood coming out of her, wherever.
The most vulgar person to ever aspire to the presidency.
The man who seems to only feel big when he's trying to make other people look small.
Don't worry about it, little Margot.
Gentlemen, the man is utterly amoral.
The sign of deep insecurity and weakness.
The bullying, the greed, the showing off.
I'm really rich.
The misogyny, the absurd third-grade theatrics.
Count to 10, Donald. Count to 10.
He's a race-baiting, xenophobic, religious bigot.
A narcissist at a level I don't think this country's ever seen.
He would not be the commander-in-chief we need to keep our country safe.
This guy is so unfit to be commander-in-chief.
His domestic policies would lead to recession. His foreign policies would make America and the world less safe.
I bring people together.
Yeah, that's our Donald, all right.
I think they could have done without Romney. He lends absolutely no credibility to that ad.
Yeah, but it was still good commentary.
It's not hard to find.
No, it really wasn't hard to find for any of them.
That was not a difficult montage to put together.
Montage. No, I'm sure it wasn't. But it was well done, and we appreciate it. We do appreciate it. Well, listen, yesterday, President Barack Obama was in Michigan, more specifically Flint, Michigan. And in fact, I was a guest this morning, early this morning, on the USA Radio Network, talking about the governor's and the president's remarks in Flint. The governor, Rick Snyder of Michigan, was soundly booed. He spoke for just over 3 minutes, I think 3 minutes and 12 seconds, and looked and sounded like the buffoon that he is. You can only say that it's government's fault, and they're going to take care of it so many times before the people of Flint, who have years of discomfort ahead of them, are going to tolerate that. President Obama, on the other hand, and you grabbed some audio, I believe, that you want to share with us, and I'll let you set it up, was certainly much better received than the governor of the state of Michigan, that's for sure.
Yeah, I've got two clips, and one is pretty much right at the beginning of his speech. The second clip is a little more poignant, but let's play this one because it kind of sets up the second one.
Like they don't count. Where people feel like they're not heard. And that attitude ignores how this country was built, our entire history, which is based on the idea that we're all connected and that what happens in a community like Flint matters to everybody. And that there are things that we can only do together as a nation, as a people, as a state, as a city, that no man is an island. You know, we've been debating this since the Republic began. What are individual responsibilities and what are our collective responsibilities? And that's a good debate. But I've always believed what the first Republican president, a guy named Abraham Lincoln, said. He said we should do individually those things that we do best by ourselves, but through our government we should do together what we can't do as well for ourselves. So it doesn't matter how hard you work, how responsible you are, how well you raise your kids. You can't set up a whole water system for a city. That's not something you do by yourself. You do it with other people. You can't hire your own fire department or your own police force or your own army. There are things we have to do together, basic things that we all benefit from. And that's how we invested in a rail system and a highway system. That's how we invested in public schools. That's how we invested in science and research. That's how we invested in community colleges and land-grant colleges like Michigan State. We invest. Can I get some water?
And the crowd goes wild.
And the crowd goes wild.
And the crowd did go wild, by the way. And there were a couple times, I don't think you captured it, nor would you have, that he kept on saying to the crowd, all right, settle down, settle down. And at one point he said, wow, this is a feisty crowd. They enjoyed him being there. There's no question about it. But anyway, you have another piece of audio before we finish our discussion.
Yeah, and right after that, too, this last clip is when he did actually drink highly filtered Flint water, which I thought was I thought it was a little unnecessary, as well as the fake coughing and dry throat. But that's just kind of how I felt.
No, I said this morning when I did the radio interview that it was a stunt, but it was a stunt he had to do. He could have just done it better.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. This next clip I really liked because it's kind of the stuff that you and I have been talking about for a really long time about this idea of small government and libertarianism and exactly what role the government should play in society. So let's listen to this because I thought this was an extremely good part of his speech.
Where was I? We invested in our communities and our cities. And by making those investments in the common good, we invested in ourselves. That's the platform we create that allows each of us independently to succeed. That's what made America great. So the people in Flint and across Michigan and around the country, individuals and church groups and non-for-profits and community organizations, you've proven that the American people will step up when required, and our volunteers, our non-for-profits, they're the lifeblood of our communities. We so appreciate what you do. But volunteers don't build county water systems and keep lead from leaching into our drinking glasses. We can't rely on faith groups to reinforce bridges and repave runways at the airport. We can't ask second graders, even ones as patriotic as Isaiah Britt, who raised all that money, to raise enough money to keep our kids healthy. You hear a lot about government overreach. Oh, he's for big government. Listen, it's not government overreach to say that our government's responsible for making sure you can wash your hands in your own sink, or shower in your own home, or cook for your family. These are the most basic services. There's no more basic element sustaining human life than water. It's not too much to expect for all Americans that their water is going to be safe.
Thank you.
Well, and again, it goes back to a larger discussion that predates what we know about Flint by years, which I believe was the second or third year of the Obama administration when he proposed the New Deal. That he proposed a jobs program that would rebuild the infrastructure of this country, including roads, bridges, schools, technology, and our water infrastructure. Yet he was rebuffed repeatedly by a Republican-controlled Congress. And is this, karma? I don't think so. I think it's just plain stupidity. See, I got a column posting a little later today at FwdRad.io, which is where I write. And yesterday, the state legislature that is under majority of control of the GOP, which created almost $1 billion in debt in the Detroit public schools, just in the Detroit public schools over the last decade, had a bill sitting in front of them that was ironed out in the Senate, which has even a bigger supermajority of Republicans than the House does. And it was a bipartisan effort that solved most of the problems of the Detroit public schools. And you know that the Detroit public schools are very troubled right now. The House absolutely turned that agreement on its head, passed something last night under the cover of darkness in the middle of the night that aborted so much of the good that came in that bipartisan bill from the Senate. And it's beyond racist. It's dehumanizing what they're doing to the children in Detroit. You factor that in what's happening in the city of Flint, and you've got to wonder what happened to a once blue state like Michigan, don't you?
Yeah, well, and also there was a new study out that showed that the USA, America, the greatest country in the world, blah blah blah, is number one in child poverty. number one in child poverty. I mean, just a second, because going back to what Obama said in that about volunteers and volunteers don't build water systems, that's a poignant argument because it goes back to every time we have a discussion in this country about food stamps and unemployment insurance and welfare, and particularly food stamps, the argument from the GOP is that that's not government's job, that's for churches and charities, right? And if you leave that up to volunteers and churches and charitable donations, we're going to have kids begging in the streets like we were in the 17 and 1800s.
Well, and we also are number one in the world, and this seems unfathomable, in the industrialized world, that sends more kids to bed hungry every night than any other industrialized country. Now, let's because we have to wrap things up. We're just about out of time, but Paul Ryan the other day was talking about the school lunch program, which the GOP is gutting. And this is exactly what he said. Exactly what he said. I'm not paraphrasing. By giving children free lunch, we are literally taking their souls away.
Yeah, and in the same... Well, and here's what's funny about Paul Ryan's comment is 2 weeks ago, he had a speech about how wrong he was about his Ayn Rand views of the world and how poverty isn't people's choice and that he met poor people and he had a come to Jesus moment and he had this great speech. I think we played that on the air, didn't we?
We did.
Yeah.
But you're going to do me a favor. Her name is Ayn Rand.
Okay.
And,
Ayn Rand. Sorry.
Ayn
who, by the
Rand.
way, also collected Social Security. And then this last week, he comes out with the comment that you just alluded to, that we should cut school lunch programs because it destroys children's souls. And he wants to take out the pre-existing condition clause and put it back in to Obamacare. That insurance companies can deny you based on pre-existing conditions. Which, by the way, if you took the GOP's meaning of that, simply being born is a pre-existing condition.
Well, I'll remind people as we get ready to wrap it up. A pre-existing condition was being born female. If you were a woman, you were considered to have a pre-existing condition during your childbearing years, which means that as long as you hadn't attained menopause, you had two strikes against you. And we'll let that comment stand on its own. See, how do people get more information about TNZ Talk?
They can find us on the intertubes at tnztalk.com, where they can find all the information about us, how to follow us, how to friend us on Twitter and Facebook. You can also go to our support page and find out how to support us both monetarily / financially, which is becoming increasingly important, and any help would be appreciated. And also how to rate us, how to comment on us, and how to get our numbers up on iTunes, Stitcher, all over the place. And like I said, you can also sign up for our newsletter, which comes out daily. We'll let you know when the latest show is out, and you can also find all our archives up there. Again, that's tnztalk.com.
By the way, loved the picture of Commodore Trump yesterday. Very well done.
You like that?
Yeah, I mean, it's even actually it was even better than the penguin-looking Ted Cruz with the monocle and the cigarette. Yes.
Oh, and
Commodore.
also, Tony, real quick, going back to the site, I am working on a phone number that people can call and comment, and we'll see about playing those on the show. It's an idea I'm playing with, and but I'm working on a phone number that they can call. They can leave us a voicemail, and as long as it's not, out of hand, we may.
You mean especially if it's out of hand?
Especially if it's out of hand, we'll play it.
Yeah, you bet. All right. Well, listen, Z, thanks for another great day. We'll be back tomorrow, Friday, the 6th day of May. But for now, everybody enjoy Cinco de Mayo. And especially Donald Trump, who I'm sure is eating Mexican food today, prepared by real Mexicans.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, imagine that. In the meantime, everybody have a great day. Don't forget to follow us, subscribe, all that good stuff that Richard talked about. And as always, we ask that you be well.